So we talk about small intestine and heart, which are the fire element, which is the two paired organs in Chinese medicine that we're working with in this cleanse, and the large intestine too, because you can't really separate it, nor the stomach. But we're looking at this layers in this villi. This is the villi in the intestines. They're being stripped away every 2 or 3 days. And we have chapters in our life. And so you, by undergoing this cleanse, if you have not already stated and written your goals for what you want out of your time, please do so, because it's going to help you. And those goals should feel good. They should feel attainable. I love in my men's work, we talk about SMART goals. They should be simple, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. That's a SMART goal. And that way, so measurable, I want to feel better. That's not good enough. Quantify that somehow. Should be realistic. You don't want to go out on a limb. They should be time bound. So 21 days, you want to lose 6 pounds, that's great. And they should feel good. They shouldn't feel like so big that you're not going to be able to do it. All right, slide 2. We're looking at the small intestine. Separates the pure from the impure. That's what we call discernment. That's intestinal discernment. And it's seeing clearly, because judgment is where discernment turns into a charge. Discernment, there is no charge. It's just the facts. And in the intestines, the facts are, I need to get in the nourishment for the rest of the body, and I need to move along what's not as pure down to the large intestine, where the bacterial and fungal and microbial populations down there can further break it down for us. So there's sort of I used to call it a race for survival, in that we've got our cells, we've got the bacterial cells, fungal cells, parasitic whatevers, virals, and there's a race for survival there of getting the nutrients first. And now I see that, as I've learned this more and more over the years, it's more of actually a cooperative synergy when we have enough of the homeostatic soil-based organisms in our body, and organisms that are going to actually work with us, because we're not going to win the battle. We're 90% or more microbial in terms of sheer volume of cells and DNA. We're finding out that through DNA testing and more modern day scientific testing. So what helps you see more clearly? I hope you're beginning to identify that if the gut down below isn't working well, then you're not going to see well up here. And so things that help us see more clearly, I know that when I leave wheat and certain foods out of my diet, and when I cleanse, I tend to see more clearly. It's just sometimes I don't want to see what I'm seeing, if that makes any sense at all. So next, slide 3. So you're in control, and let people feel like I have some issues with my own habit patterns, and sometimes I do feel like there's a being in back of me that's pushing me and making me do things. But ultimately, we're the one that's deciding. Even though later on there'll be some slides we'll talk about real briefly about getting that under wraps, where you're the decision maker, not the microbes, because the microbes are actually causing cravings and causing things that are going to help their habitat in our intestines and help them stay rooted in our body. And we do want them to. We want the helpful ones to. We want them to establish a clean biofilm or mucus layer, a clean habitat, a clean apartment complex, if you will. And so, when we clean out our apartment, first we have to clean up all the peripheral mess. And that's sort of what the Kupffer cells there, you see the rubbish collection section of the liver, they're sort of cleaning up the mess. And then you put it in the bags, which is the lymphatic system, or bound to something, put into the bile, or something in the red blood cells, or something in the urine. And then the trash can is where stuff will wait for being picked up. So like the gallbladder, the intestines, again, the lymphatic system, things can back up there, the spleen, the kidneys. So the trash cans, the bags have got to be put in the trash cans, and the garbage man has to come. Well, the garbage man is you defecating, you urinating, you breathing, you're sweating. These are the normal routes of elimination when you get rashes or headaches or other things, symptoms. And a lot of the times it's just because we're not getting the garbage out fast enough as it's coming in. And that's where the cleanse really helps us get this going. And that's what this first week is about. Slide 4 is real simply just talking about the detoxification pathways and the nutrients required. You'll see we need vitamin E, which comes from natural raw oils and raw nuts and seeds. Antioxidants, which are in fresh fruits and vegetables. Glutathione, which is made from good quality protein, sulfur-containing proteins, B vitamins, and folic acid. So that first phase, and then you'll see the next phase requires solid amino acids, and you'll see glycine there, and that's what they call betaine, sulfur-containing compounds, so your cruciferous vegetables, garlic. And step 1 and step 2 are required. They are required. You can't just detox part of the way. And then we want these waste products to be sent out, as you can see, in the bowel and the urine. So the small intestine is, again, separating the pure from the impure. Remember that? And then the body's taking in what it wants and then sent for the liver for further processing, which is in these detox pathways. So some of us produce more waste than others, and I can tell that through iridology. And somewhat in the sclera is the person's propensity to produce waste. It shows very clearly in the reef, we call it the nerve reef, and the size of it and the way it's shaped. And so it helps us give us a lot of clinical value in that we're looking at, if they're a high waste producer, then they're going to have to be more impeccable with their diet. And those who aren't as high waste producers, well, I still think they should be impeccable, but they can get away with stuff the others can't. Move on to slide 5. So you're all being given assistance with what you're taking week 1, week 2, week 3. Whether you're doing this online or in the group, please realize that the big issues in health these days, they're not going away. So this is something that I've been talking to people about more and more, is these cavitated or hidden infections. You know, they show up in the sclera, they show up in the iris, and if they're not dealt with, then what we see often, I'm reading a new textbook, I'm studying sclerology, or study of the white of the eye more these days. And what he's saying, one of the experts that is much further along than I, he's saying that what we're seeing in the sclera is actually things that are likely to materialize in 6 months to 4 years. And I love that, because then we're seeing a predictive system, and we're also seeing what's currently been driving. You can see what's happened in the past and where it's going to affect in the future. So hidden infections, we've all got at least a few typically. Jaw and teeth issues, which can coincide with biofilms or nasty stuff growing in the mouth. Sinus issues. I've been able to minimize most of that. The things that I know that in my life that are impossible to minimize or get away entirely from are the EMFs and radiation exposure, mold exposure. We're not going to get away from heavy metal exposure, somewhat in the air, and bonding materials, like glues and things, are going to be in the air. Metals, again, we can develop heavy metal allergies, and then microbial overgrowth. Well, so you see, if you can minimize these factors, then you're actually going to end up in a higher state of health, because you're not continually drawing your energy and immune system to be dealing with this stuff. And so keep that in mind. This is stuff that I don't often share, but it's serious enough that it's warranted a slide here, and you're doing yourself a huge service by beginning that process in this cleanse. Slide 6 is just a brief overview again. The awareness just lets things be, and then they get processed in their own due time. So this first week, we're really getting cleared and detoxified. So throughout the whole cleanse, we want easy to digest food, but this first week, the supplements and things you're taking, and some of the diet, like the umeboshi plums we'll talk about later. If you haven't already bought them, then it's not a big deal. Just have salt and lemon and water in the morning. But we're setting up ourselves for clearing the rubbish that the first slide talked about. Then week 2, we're going to evict the people that aren't helping our apartment. And then week 3, we're going to send in some new tenants that are more helpful for the community, which is our body. Slide 7. So this is the umeboshi plum. In real time, obviously this is Monday morning, so if you haven't bought umeboshi plums, I suggest it, and I suggest always having some around, because they're good intestinal cleansers and disinfectants. good detoxicants. They're good alkaline help. And so this is what we want for our morning drink, is at least 16 ounces of water. If you don't have the ume plum, you can do ginger and apple cider vinegar, or ginger and lemon, or diluted fruit juice. If you do okay with citrus, you might do some orange juice, but I really more suggest the ume plum. And then a before meal aperitif, could also be a glass of wheatgrass or an ounce of wheatgrass. Could be really good. Swedish bitters, or I sell something called backyard bitters here. Bitters are known to stimulate digestion. That's what we're trying to do. And then we're also grated radish salad of some sort is also a nice. There's no recipe for that. You just kind of grate some radish, throw in a few olives, squeeze some lemon on there, add a little bit of turmeric, a little bit of umeboshi plum or paste mashed up, and then a few berries might be nice to round it out. Just a little bit of sour. All the lemon's already in there. And that could be your before meal aperitif, one of those three things there. If you don't have any one of those things, and you just have some romaine lettuce, just munch on a couple of bites of romaine lettuce, or you could even have something else bitter that's in your life, like a little dandy blend, or we should talk if you really need that much more assistance. Slide 8. So your focus foods, we went over this last week. So if you're watching this online and you're in the virtual cleanse on another time frame, then because it's the summer, you're not going to see these vegetables in the winter. So hopefully you are choosing to do this in the summertime. If you're not, you can get some of these freeze-dried or powders, or you can get dandelion tincture. I do nasturtium green tinctures and purslane tinctures also. And then olives are very bitter, very high in potassium. In the summertime, in the sodium-potassium duality in the body, we want a lot more potassium-rich foods this time of year. And what that means is a lot more fruits and vegetables, which is what the earth is providing with us for. We also want to look at water-rich foods, raw liquids and juices. And in the days you don't have to work much, I suggest you rest and you do basically just vegetables and juice a lot, and have liquid diet and rest, and don't eat a lot of fat, don't eat a lot of protein, because those are going to slow down your detox. Carbohydrates, we already know that those are slowing down detox, and we don't need carbohydrates to survive. So some people do function better on carbohydrates. So if you need lentil soup for a little bit of protein and carb, that's a great thing to live on when the weather's cold, like it's raining here today. It's so bizarre. I'm going to continue this in part 2, because I'm about halfway through, and my YouTube's going to give me run out of time for me. So we'll continue part 2 in just a minute on slide 9.